In recent years, the Washington Capitals, mainly because of Alexander Ovechkin, have become one of the most popular and successful teams in the NHL. They won a Stanley Cup. They're always knocking on the door every year. But today we're going to be talking about early version of their team, actually inaugural season, one of the worst teams in NHL history. Not their fault. They didn't have much players to draft from, either in the draft or the expansion draft. And it wouldn't be for Dennis Dupre and a few other players, they wouldn't have won a game that season. Now, the 75 Capitals, they were the first expansion team from Washington ever in the NHL. Along with the Kansas City Scouts, the Capitals joined the NHL as an expansion team for 75. The team was owned by Abe Poulin, who also owned the then NBA's Washington Bullets. Now, Poulin had built the Capitol Center in suburban Landover to house both the Bullets, who formerly played in Baltimore, now the Wizards, and the Capitals. His first act as owner was to hire Hall of Famer Milt Schmidt, formerly of the Bruins, as GM. Now, they finished that year 5th in the North and 9th in the Wales with a 8-67-5 record, 7-28-5 at home with a 1-39 road record. Only win, I think, was against the Seals. Now, goals for 181, but goals against an astounding 446. They had three head coaches that year: Jim Anderson, Red Sullivan, and Milt Schmidt, with Doug Bones, hairpiece and all, as captain. Now, Williams led the team with 22 goals and 36 assists for 58 points. Yvon Labre, our great defenseman, 182 minutes in penalties. Ron Lowe had all 8 wins, with Michel Beaulieu not winning a game, that leading to a 5.36 average. Now, the draft, he took Greg Joly of the Regina Pats as number 1, had a very ineffective career, but the good Mike Marson, their number 2 pick, John Paddock, the future executive, at number 3, and some interesting people in the draft. He took Clint Malarchuk's brother Garth, and Tony White, who had a solid NHL career, 10th overall from the Rangers. Now, he also took 18 pick overall Johnny Bauer Jr. Of all people, so an interesting draft. Now, expansion draft was Lowe and Bill Muir as goalies, Dave Cricksau, Yvon Labre, Pete Laframboise, Bob Grip, Gordy Smith, Steve Atkinson, Bruce Cowick, Dennis Dupre, who had 20 goals that year, Joe Lundgren, Randy Bill Mikkelson from the Islanders, Ron Anderson, Mike Lampin, Lou Morrison, Steve West, Larry Bolanchuk, Murray Anderson, Larry Foulin, and Jack Eagers. Now, again, it was a rough season. The talent pool that year was extremely thin. Again, in that first season, the Capitals would set an NHL record for utility, losing 67 games, bet by the Ottawa Senators in 93 with 70. The Scouts fared only marginally better, getting their first win against the Capitals, albeit their 10-game existence, and expansion was widely seen as having been a mistake, and of course they moved to Colorado and later New Jersey. Now, the Capitals' inaugural season, again, was dreadful even by expansion standards. Their 21 points were half that of the expansion brethren, the Scouts. They won only 8 games, the fewest ever by a team playing at least 70 games. Their 131 winning percentage is still the worst in NHL history. They also set records for most road losses with 39, most consecutive road losses with 37, and most consecutive losses, 17, most of which have now been broken. Hard to believe, eh? Schmidt himself had to take over the coaching reins late in the season, and of course the Capitals failed to qualify for the playoffs. Now, Washington's 8 wins, 7 of them were decided by 2 goals or more, while their season's superlative 8-4 win in their final game gave them the 4-goal cushion. Now, the big problem Washington had that year was the Montreal Canadiens. I think Montreal had scored close to 50 goals against them that year. They started with a 3-0 win on Halloween night, October 31st, and then they won 11-1 to push them to 1-12-1. Now, they did well against Atlanta that year. They were very competitive, but he had some really rough games, ladies and gentlemen, especially against the Sabres. December 5th, losing 9-2 to fall to 2-21-3. Now, a big loss to the Bruins, 12-1, right before Christmas. And again, the losses were piling up. Terrible loss January 4th, 10-0 to Montreal, and the game wasn't that close. You also lost 7-2 to Montreal on January 12th. As we look at the stats, again, competitive against the Rangers, but I mean, the Rangers were a building team. A big loss to the Sabres, 9-4 on the 21st. Then they lost the next night to Chicago, 10-3. Lost to St. Louis, 7-2, and then to Chicago, 6-2. So a rough four-game patch. Montreal Canadiens again, March 17th. They lost to them 8-4. And I think one of the most humiliating losses of the season, the day before the end of the regular season, losing 10-2 to Montreal in Montreal. Now, they did defeat California in the only road win of the season, and the third to last road game of the year. Now, they also defeated Pittsburgh 8-4 in the final contest. Now, Tommy Williams led the team with 58 points, with a minus 48. 53 games had 20 goals, 35 points. The very underrated Mike Marson had 28 points, 16 goals, but with a minus 65. Every player of the team was either minus 25 to minus 50. But the really rough year, ladies and gentlemen, it's too bad I even have to mention this, but I have to because it has to be seen to be believed. And I kid you not. Greg Joly was minus 68, but not as bad as Bill MIKKELSON. Bill was a good player, but that year, 3 goals, 7 assists for 10 points, minus 82. Ironically, he had all indication to be a good part of the team. Now, another player stood out for a lot of people was Garner Dace-Bailey, who had 17 points in 22 games. And Stalin Gilbertson, too, very, very underrated player, guy, 18 points in 25 games. So there was talent there. Laframboise was there, and Nelson Payat, 10 points in 16 games. But the pace was most of the forwards would be a minus 1 to minus 2 every game. You can do the math there. And of course, in goal, ladies and Belmure 0-24-3, and Ron Lowe 8-36-2. So overall, like I said, they didn't have much. They only had one line, and they could score goals here and there. But like I said, Danny Gallivan said it best, and I think it was backed up by René Lecavalier. He said, watched him in a few years, and of course, in the 1980s when he started making the playoffs, there were contenders, at least top 8 on the Patrick side, or what he called the East Coast side. But watching Washington back then, the jerseys were nice. They had good original jerseys, but what really stood out for us, one of the few black players to ever make the NHL from the Maritimes, Billy Riley, played one game with Washington that year, and we're very proud. Of course, he was a big part of the NHL from then on in the Jet system as well. But ladies and gentlemen, if you can find any tape, documentaries on the old Washington Capitals, please check it out, because I don't think we should hold it against them. Kansas City, the NHL should have never gone to Kansas City for a minor league team, but Washington, big city, has always been good in major leagues. We see the Washington baseball teams, hockey-wise, when the Capitals really caught on, again, one of the most important franchises in the NHL the last quarter centuries. Like, it's the first act of a play that hasn't been practiced yet, and the first act was terrible, but Ron Lowe went on to good success with Edmonton. Ace Bailey, as an executive, God bless him, he passed away in 9/11. A tough go. But Tommy Williams, as an American player, to really show that program, and it gave a chance to a lot of AHL prospects for that season, at least, to play a few games in the NHL. And Duparé was good with Toronto. He played his heart out in Washington. And Gilbertson, one of my favorite players, because I first saw him with the Seals, when the Seals had those really strange yellow skates, and my dad always said, Washington, California was hard in the eyes because the way he played, but he said, I like that Gilbertson guy. And Gilbertson was a good player, comparable to kind of a young Yvon Labre, had good way around the net. So if you like what we're doing with our Vintage NHL podcast, let us know with a like, comment, or subscribe, or share. Have a great day. Bye. And happy Canada Day. Woo! Hug a beaver. Bye.